describing and explaining two methods for item distractor analysis in Excel to evaluate and assess the quality of multiple choice question exam. Item distractors are the multiple choice answer options that are not the correct answers. This is an example of a multiple choice question. Question 1. COVID-19 infection is caused by, and there are 4 possible answer options: A, B, C, D. A is the correct answer and B and C and D are the incorrect answers. So B and C and D are called the distractors because they distract the student from selecting the correct answer, which is A, and attracting them to select the wrong answer or answers, which is B or C or D. Good item distractor should be plausible, i.e. reasonable options, but not correct. Have negative discrimination, i.e. chosen by low performing students. Effective distractor will distract the student from the correct answer and will attract low performing student than high performing students. Item distractor analysis is one way to measure how well each of the incorrect option in a multiple choice question contributes to the quality of the question. It does assess whether the distractor function effectively in distracting the student from selecting the correct answer. It does examine the percentage of students who selected each incorrect answer to determine whether the distractors are functional. It does examine how good is the distractor in discriminating between high-performing and low-performing students and attracting low-performing students. Two most frequently used indices that assess the effectiveness of a distractor are the proportion value or percentage value, as it is similar to the difficulty value, and the item discrimination that is used to determine whether the distractor can discriminate between high performing and low performing student, and the analysis is based on Kelly's equation method. So how do we calculate the distractor efficiency? Using two possible tests. The first one is the proportion value, in which the distractor percentage is calculated by counting the number of students selected distractor 1 divided by the total number of students multiplied by 100. The second calculation or test is the item discrimination following Kelly's method. ID equal to upper group minus lower group divided by the 27% of the students selected based on their total score. So the way to calculate the ID is to first calculate the total score achieved by each individual participant in a test or exam, then rank this total score from high to low, and then group the student into upper group and lower group. Upper group represent the top 27% total scores, and the lower group represent the bottom 27% total score. So in the proportion value or test, the percentage of the students selecting the distractor is calculated, and the distractor effectiveness have a range from 0 to 100%. A distractor that has been selected by more than 5% of the students indicate that it is functional, effective distractor. And a distractor that has not been selected by any student will be non-functional, useless distractor. And a distractor that have been selected by less than 5% of the student is considered to be a non-functional distractor. Another method to assess the distractor or item distractor is to calculate the distractor discrimination. Each distractor will have its own item discrimination value. It will compare, the test will compare the performance of 27% high scorer with the performance of 27% low scorers. The value ranges from 1 to -1, and the distractor have negative discrimination index value is considered to be functional, and a distractor that has a positive discrimination index value is considered a non-functional, and distractor with a 0 value of ID indicates that it is an ineffective one that need to be replaced, rephrased, or rewritten. This is in this slide an example for item distractor analysis using the p-value or the percentage value. For 54 students participating in the test and answering in a multiple choice question that have 4 options, A, B, C, D. A is the correct answer, B and C and D are the wrong answers, so they are distractors. And to calculate the percentage for each, the first distractor B, 2 students selected the distractor, so 2 divided by 54 multiplied by 100 equal 4%. Distractor C has a p-value of 35% and D has a 9% value for the p percentage or the proportion value. As we can see, the distractor B is selected by less than 5% of the students, so it is non-functional and it is useless. However, distractor C and D is selected by more than 5% of the student, thus it is functional and it is effective. Another way to analyze the item distractor is to use the item discrimination following Kelly's method. Here is an example for 100 students answering a multiple choice question that has 4 options. A is the correct answer, B and C and D are the distractors. To perform this analysis, the total scores achieved by each individual student for those 100 students is calculated, and the total score is arranged from high to low, and based on that total score, an upper group and lower group is generated. The upper group will have the top 27% total score and the lower one will have the lowest 27%. For distractor B and C and D, as we see here, the ID value is equal to 0 for distractor B, which means that both the high performing and low performing students selected this distractor in equal proportion. Thus it is ineffective, non-functional. Distractor C, on the other hand, has been selected by the low performing student, so it attracted low performing student and it has a minus value. This distractor is functional and is effective. Distractor D is non-functional as it has attracted more of the high performing student than the low performing student to select this distractor. Analysis of multiple choice question exam quality by performing an item distractor analysis in Excel. An item distractor is the incorrect answer options in a multiple choice question. It is the wrong answer within the 4 or 5 options in a multiple choice question. If the question has 4 answer options, one of the answers will be correct answer and the other 3 will be the incorrect or wrong answer, and those 3 incorrect answers are called distractors. Distractor distract the student or the participant from selecting the correct answer. The way to calculate the distractor efficiency is to calculate distractor percentage using the formula below, which is equal to the number of the students selected the distractor, whether distractor 1 or 2 or 3, out of the 4 possible answers, divided by total number of students multiplied by 100. Here in Excel, I have data extracted from an exam result for a 25 student participating in answering a 15 multiple choice question exam. And each question has 4 possible answer options: A, B, C, D. The correct answer for each question is shadowed or colored by a light blue color. So for question number 1, the correct answer is P. For question 2, the correct answer is option P. For question number 3, the correct answer is option D. And for question 4, the correct answer is option C. So this is a collection of the data for an exam, and in each question the value for A and B and C and D represent the number of the students selected, whether option A or B or C or D. And to calculate the distractor percentage and evaluate the efficiency of the distractor, whether the distractor is effective in distracting the student from selecting the correct answer, we will use the equation given below here. And the way to do that, I'm going to type here distractor percentage, and then in the cell next to it I'm going to type A percentage, and then B percentage, C percentage, and then D percentage. You are going to calculate the percentage for each one of these possible answer in a multiple choice question. And to calculate that for A, I'm going to insert the equal sign and then select the first value here, divide that by 25 as I have 25 students, and multiply that by 100 using this symbol. And if you click on enter, a value will be generated which represent the percentage of the distractor, or the value of the percentage of the distractor selected by student for question number 1, options number labeled A. To auto calculate and fill for the rest of the options, answer options, select the cell here, drag, and the Excel will auto fill and auto calculate the value and the percentage for each possible options for each question. And to auto fill the rest of the questions, select, drag to auto fill and calculate. And then to highlight the value within these question that is less than 5, I'm going to select conditional formatting, and I'm going to select highlight cell rules, go for less than, select less than, and I'm going to type here less than 5, and I'm going to color coded that with light red filled with dark red. So if I click on OK, sorry, I have to select first the data here, and then again select highlight cell rules, then less than, and then select 5%. Again, keep the same thing, click on OK, and here we can see that for question number 4, here we can see a value of 4 for options A. So the correct answer for question number 4 is C, and the other 3 answers are wrong answers, so they are the distractor. And the distractor here for A, distractor A for question number 4 is less than 5. So this distractor is not efficient, i.e. it is useless. It is not distracting the student from the correct answer, selecting the correct answer. So it is non-functional. So it's need to be replaced or rephrased. So the students are not selecting or lessly selecting this option. Again, for question number 5, we can see here the options B is the correct answer, and for option D, D is the distractor, C is the distractor, and A is the distractor. And for the distractor D, the value for the distractor percentage is equal to 0. That means that this options, an answer option in this multiple choice, is not attracting any student to select that. So it's not doing its function of distracting the student from not selecting the correct answer and selecting this option, which is D. So again, this distractor is ineffective and is need to be replaced. Again, the same thing for question number 8, question number 9, question number 10. In fact, question number 10 have 2 distractors that are not efficient, as the value is less than 5. So distractor A and C need to be replaced. The same thing with question number 12, as distractor C and D need modification, as it is the value for it less than 5. Again, the question number 13 is 0, and 14 has an issue with distractor A and distractor C, and question 15 has an also a problem with distractor C. So here as shown that the distractor percent value less than 5, then the distractor is non-functional and is useless. So it's better to replace it and insert a different possible options that will attract the student to select it, though it is a wrong answer. So this is the way to evaluate your multiple choice question exam, by looking at not the correct answer options in the answer 4 options, by analyzing the distractor, the incorrect answer, and determining whether these distractors are distracting the student from selecting the correct answer, and they are selecting one of these 3 distractors. This is the way to do it in Excel. Analysis of multiple choice question exam quality by performing item distractor analysis in Excel. A distractor is a wrong or incorrect answer in a multiple choice question. If a multiple choice question have 4 answer options, one of the answer options will be the correct answer, and the rest will be the incorrect answer options, and they will be called distractors. The function of the distractor is to distract the student from selecting the correct answer, and will attract them to select the wrong answer, i.e. the distractor. So the distractor can be effective, functional, or can be ineffective, non-functional, useless. And the way to evaluate the item distractor is to use the Kelly's equation method for item discrimination analysis. I have already produced several video clips describing the background, the concept, and the method of Kelly's equation with associated example or data. The Kelly's equation for item discrimination equals to upper group minus lower group divided by the 27% total. To perform item distractor analysis using Kelly's equation, the total scores achieved by each individual student will be calculated, and then the total score will be ranked or ordered in from a higher to a lower value. And then the students will be divided into two groups, upper group and lower group. The upper group will represent the top 27% of total score, and the lower group will represent the lowest 27% of total scores. So with the Kelly's equation ID discrimination, the value will be ranging from -1 to 1. An item distractor that have a value of -1 is a functional and is an effective distractor, as it is attracting more of low performing student to select the wrong answer, i.e. to select the distractor. And if the value is equal to 0, then the distractor is useless, ineffective, and non-functional, as it cannot discriminate between the high performing and low performing students. So it does not discriminate or distinguish, and both high performing and low performing students are selecting this distractor in equal proportion. And if the value is greater than 0 up to +1, Again, this value indicate that the distractor is inefficient, ineffective, as it is attracting more of the high-performing student to select this wrong option or wrong answer. So this distractor, if it has that value, then it has to be replaced or rephrased. Here in Excel, I had placed a data taken from an exam paper for 25 students participating in answering an exam questions that consist of a multiple choice questions. There are 15 multiple choice questions labeled as Q1 up to Q15, and each multiple choice question have 4 possible answer options labeled as A, B, C, D. For the correct answer options in each question, a value of 1 is inserted to represent that the student had answered the question correctly. For example, in question number 1, the correct answer is option B. For question number 3, the correct answer is option number A. For question number 6, the correct answer is option C. And for question number 1, as I have said that option B is the correct answer, then option A and C and D are the incorrect answers. Thus, they are the distractor that distract the student from selecting the correct answer. And in this data, the distractor had been given a 0 value if it is have been selected by student. For question number 1, student number 2 had selected option D, and student number 4 had selected option A, and student number 6 had selected distractor C. To evaluate the effectiveness of these distractor in distracting the student from selecting the correct answer and attracting them to select the wrong answer, then we need to do an item discrimination analysis using the Kelly's equation method. The way to do that is first to calculate the total score achieved by each participant, and this can be done by adding up all the correct answer for each individual student. So in this cell here, I'm going to type total score and then in the cell below I'm going to use the symbol of sum, and then I'm going to select the range of the data to collect the sum for all the 15 questions for the first student. And if I select and click enter, a value is generated of 14. That means the first student had scored 14 questions correctly out of 15 questions. And to auto-fill and auto-calculate the value for the total score or scores for the rest of the student, just select the cell, click, drag and hold to the last student. The Excel will auto-calculate and auto-fill the value for each total score. Now, each student has his total score or performance for this exam, and as we can see here, some of the students had scored 10, some of them 9, and some of them 13, and so on. The next step is to rank these total scores from high to low value. And the way to do that is first to select the row for students, and in addition to the total score, and then scroll down until you reach the student number 25. So we have selected all the students with their multiple choice options they have scored. And to rank these data using the total score, select and click on the sort and filter and use the custom sort. In the custom sort window for the column, I'm going to select sorting by the total score, and in the order I'm going for larger to the smallest. And if I click on OK, again the software will rank the total score from the highest to the lowest. As we can see here, the higher scorer is 14 out of 15 questions, and the lowest score is 5. Now the next step is to group those 25 students to upper 27% group, upper group, and to lower group of 27% scorer of the total score. So we're going to, since we have 25 students, then 27% of those students will be close to 7. So we're going to select the top data for the top 7 scorer and the data for the lowest 7 scorer. And the way to do that is to type here upper group, and to count the scores in each group, going to next to the upper group cell, type insert equal sign, and then type count, select the count function, and then select the first 7 scores or data for the first 7 students. And if you click on enter, a value is generated. And to auto calculate and auto fill the value for each upper group for each item, select, hold, drag towards the last answer option. The software will auto calculate and auto fill the value for the upper group. And to calculate the value for the lower group, again we're going to type here lower group, and then next to it I'm going to insert the equal sign, and then count, type count and select the first count, and then I'm going to select the last or the lowest group 7 student scores for the lower group. And if I click on enter, again as we can see here, for these 7 with only 2 scores in it, 2 students had selected the wrong option, option A, in this group. And to auto calculate and auto fill the value for the rest of the answer options, hold, drag, and until you reach the end of the data up to here, and the value is generated. Now the next step is to determine the item discrimination, and the way to do that is to insert the equal sign and then open a 2 bracket, and in the between the 2 bracket we're going to subtract the lower group from the upper group. And the way to do that is select the upper group and then add the minus sign, select the lower group, and then after the bracket divide that by 7, as we had selected 7 students for each group. And if you click on enter, a minus value is generated. To autofill and auto calculate for the rest of the answer options, again hold, drag, and a value will be generated for the rest. Now here, this value of item discrimination will determine whether a distractor is functional, effective, or it is non-functional or not effective. If we look at question number 1, and we will only focus on distractor A, C, and D. In the first distractor A, we can see that it has a value of minus 0.14. This is a minus value. This indicates that this distractor is functional, is effective in distinguishing between high performing and low performing. As we can see from this, the low performing student are selecting this distractor or this wrong option, answer option, compared to the high performing student. So for option A or distractor A, it is functional, it is good. For distractor C in question number 1, the value is 0. That means it is not distinguishing between high performing and low performing, which indicate that both group of the student have equal proportion of selecting this distractor. So it is ineffective in discriminating between high performing and low performing, and in this case it ought to discard this distractor and replace it with another one that will attract more of the low performing student rather compared to high performing student. For option D in question 1, which is distractor D, again the value is minus 0.14, and that is a functional and an effective distractor. If we look at further options here, we can see for question number 2, the value is minus 0.28. That is a functional distractor. For question number 3, option or distractor B, again we can see here that the value is 0.28. Here in this case, I will call this distractor as non-functional or inefficient. Why? Because it has a positive value and it is attracting more of the high performing student to select this wrong answer options. So it is non-functional or it is not effective. So this distractor need or required, it is essential to replace this distractor or this answer option with either a rephrased distractor. So these need to be omitted or cancelled. And this is also the same for the rest of the values. Most of the values here, this is 0, so this is ineffective, this is ineffective, this is this one for question number 7, it is again ineffective as it is positive, and so on. So this is the way to evaluate and assess the distractor or distractors and to determine whether they are efficient or functional, and they are able to distinguish between high performing student and low performing student in a way that they attract more of the low performing student to select the wrong option or answer option. This method of assessing and evaluating the distractor is based on the Kelly's equation method, and this will give an educator or an instructor a value to measure and then to assess and evaluate the distractor and determine whether a distractor is functioning or not functioning, whether it needs replacing or whether it's doing its job in a good manner in that it is distracting. So this is the way to do it in Excel using the Kelly's equation method.